Hey YouTube, Hive Radical here. I was going to bypass the cumbersome comment system on YouTube, and just since I have an opportunity, my environs are amenable to it, so I'm going to respond to Morse code. That's code with a 0 in place of the second O in code. I'll put a link to his stuff, but he was posting a video in response to some commentary, some dialogue that went on in one of Veritas's videos with regard to the Founding Fathers and secularism. Veritas, I believe, was making some mistakes in what he was laying out. And I had never before this time seen an atheist or secularist claim that the Founding Fathers were by and large or completely secularist. And Morse code came out and did this, and he did a rather humorous dictation of my post there. I kind of liked it. Thought it was funny and cool. I wish I was that cool. But so I mean, he gave a really good response. His video response was good. It was to the point. But I think it brings out the point where we diverge and where I don't see there being an agreement. So first off, to start with, I want to say that I completely agree that the Founding Fathers believed that the government should not prefer any one religion or any one religious tradition. That's pretty clear in the Founders. But let's look at the etymology of the word secular, secularist, and secularism, because I think this is where we get the divergence. Morse code was stating, you can be a Christian and a secularist, you can be a Muslim and a secularist, you can be Hindu and a secularist, Scientologist and a secularist. And I just don't agree with that, not with the etymology. And this is where I think you could, to some degree, receive the label of revisionist, in that you're simply not paying attention to the meaning, the actual meaning of the word secularist. You're kind of giving it a new meaning, which, I mean, if you want to ascribe that meaning to it, that's your prerogative, but it isn't the meaning that secularism and secular had, and I do not believe the Founding Fathers would have identified themselves at all with the label secular. Or anyway, I'll get into it. So there's an etymology, online etymology dictionary. It is at www.etymonline.com, etymonline.com. I'll post a link to it. But if you go in there and you type in secularism, it'll bring up secular, the etymology for that. It's got a thing, circa 1290, quote, living in the world, not belonging to a religious order. Also, quote, belonging to the state. From the Old French seculaire, from, I believe that's Latin, secularis, worldly, secular, from Latin, secularis, quote, of an age, occurring once in an age, from saculum, which is age, span of time, generation. Anyway, it gets down to it, says it's something tied to mankind, world, literally meaning seed of man. So it's something tied to the here and now. And it goes on into secularism. The term secularism, the definition it gives here, and this isn't really off. In fact, let's go to Merriam-Webster.com, m-w.com, and if you pull up secularism or secularist there, it pulls up indifference to or rejection or exclusion of religion and religious considerations. And that, along with just the whole tie-in, the etymology, the history of the words secular, secularist and secularism. In fact, if you look at the word secularist and the word secularism, those words were not coined until the mid-1800s. And so it wouldn't have even been a term. The word secular certainly existed at the time of the Founding Fathers, but the secularist and secularism, the kind of a movement and giving of a whole thing with that particular name, it just didn't exist back at the time of the Founding Fathers. So, but secularism, it says here, again, I don't believe I've said this, but it says doctrine that morality should be based on the well-being of man in the present life, without regard to religious belief or a hereafter. Now, I don't know about you, but I've gone, the readings I've gone through, I have a friend that's been actually researching a bit of the stuff in relation to Mitt Romney. You may all recall, especially the the secular humanist portion of, and the atheist and the anti-theistic and the agnostics, a lot of them really had a beef with Romney. What he presented, the particular line in his speech where he cited the tie between faith and freedom. And a lot of people just really raked him across the coals on that, and oh, he's excluding this. I had a friend that went into this because he kind of had a similar sentiment to the criticism. He's of the same faith I am, but he went back and he's looked at the stuff, and I'm in the process of getting this from him. But he found out that this was the view of a lot of the Founding Fathers. A lot of the Founding Fathers believed that there was a tie between freedom and faith. They didn't believe that there was a particular kind of faith. They believed that there was a great detriment if you ever had a single faith that would dominate, or was given preference to a single faith or faith tradition. But the Founding Fathers very much believed that faith, that the hereafter, the belief in the divine, was very vital. This brings me to an interesting tangent that I've been reading Dawkins, his book The God Delusion. I thought it was interesting because in there he does make some references to Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Jefferson's clearly a deist. And in fact, Dawkins presents some suspicions he has, though he doesn't have proof of this, that some of these Founding Fathers weren't really deists, but they were actually atheists in his view, in his his feeling. But I thought it was interesting too, because I was reading just a little bit later in another book how it talked about how Thomas Jefferson wouldn't believe in falling stars. Like he said he would sooner believe that a group of academics at a university would collude together and lie, than to believe that stuff would fall out of the heavens. Because there were just, at the time there were people that just, rationalists that didn't believe that stuff fell out of the heavens. And so I thought it was interesting that you have that kind of tie in there, because a lot of the secularists will try to tie themselves to Thomas Jefferson, because I believe, and I have a great deal of respect for the rationality and much of the Founding Fathers and what they did, and I believe in a lot of the principles, but I believe that a lot of this is an attempt at revisionist history, because secularism, secularist, it's not merely believing in a separation of church and state. That's not secularism. It's not really. If you want to attribute that term to it, then you are changing things from what they originally were. Because I believe that there should be a separation, that the church shouldn't favor one. But it gets to this common thing that's, if you give, you state Morse code, if you give preference to any one, you are by default excluding everyone else. And, I believe that in terms of faith traditions, but I do believe that the Founding Fathers wanted to keep faith in general alive and well. And there are many things that they say, many statements they make in their writings and in the history we have that demonstrate that they believe it was vital for both the morality and the continued freedom of this nation. And so and also, if you look at where it leads us, if you look at the likes of Sam Harris, overhearing him on a radio station, and I've read most all of A Letter to the Christian Nation and a good portion of The End of Faith, but he makes this thing of we should make these tests for office to make sure that people are rational enough, essentially, is what it is. And essentially taking religious beliefs and making them making you not able to attain certain offices because your belief in these demonstrate an irrationality. But the thing with that is it is truly a secular viewpoint, and it is the logical end of a viewpoint of secular, in the term of secular being things that confine things to the present life, only considering the here and now, and not considering at all, completely keeping out of possibility the idea of a belief in the hereafter. And so I just wanted to come on and say this. Again, I respect your commentary, but I do think it's your view on this is a bit based on just a misconception of the word secularist and secularism and what it means.